In section 7.4, we're going to do 4 learning objectives, but just in this lesson, the first 3. Lesson objective A is to add and subtract functions. B is going to be multiply functions, and D is going to be divide functions. In theory, this is just a review, except this function concept is new. So I need to get you used to the notation that you're going to be seeing. So let's just go ahead and get started with down here and talk about addition. The notation you're going to see is this. They're going to ask you to find the function called h of x. And h of x is just a label. To find h of x, they want you to take the f of x function and add to it the g of x function. So for example, here they said, find h of x. H of x is equal to, take f of x plus g of x. So you're going to go up to here and notice they said f of x is equal to 2x, g of x is equal to x plus 1, and you're just going to substitute those in. So I'm going to put in parentheses f of x, which is 2x, and then I substitute in my g of x, which is x plus 1. Now in addition, there really is nothing to distribute. If you wanted to, you could imagine there was a plus 1 here, but if you distribute a plus 1 to all of these, you still get the same answer. So really, you can just drop the parentheses, and you get 2x plus 1, or plus x plus 1, and that's going to simplify to 3x plus 1, which is your answer. Subtraction works the same way. Notice the notation over here. They want us to find h of x. Here they said take the f function minus the g function. Now the order could change. Sometimes they might take g minus f, so just read carefully. So all I'm going to do to set this up is look at the f function. So I'm going to take 2x, and I like to put that in parentheses just in case it makes a difference. And then I subtract from it the g of x function, it says, and g of x is x plus 1, and put that in parentheses. Now this is very important because on here the parentheses make a difference. You do need to distribute this negative sign to both. So that's going to leave us with 2x, and then a negative times an x is a negative x, and a negative times a plus 1 is a negative 1. When you simplify this, 2x minus x is 1x, or just x, and then minus 1. And that's the answer. Multiplication, very similar. Here they want us to find h of x is equal to f of x times g of x. So let's just come on in here and write down f of x. Keep that in parentheses as 2x. G of x is x plus 1. Put that in parentheses. Now we're back to something that we've seen before. This is just doing the distributive property, so I'm going to distribute through the 2x. That's going to leave me with 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times a positive 1 is plus 2x. Now stop and think if you can crunch these together. They are not like terms. Remember, like terms are the same variable to the same power, so you can't say it's 4x squared. You just keep it like that, and that's what you would type into Schoology. The last one here is for the division, and to do division, let's do this. Take f of x and divide it by g of x. So I'm going to take f of x, which is 2x in parentheses, divide it by g of x, which is x plus 1, and keep that in parentheses. Now I'm going to tell you right now, this cannot be simplified further. Whenever we have something where in the group it's a plus or a minus, and there's something going on with that, you cannot cross off these x's. You're going to be tempted to say, oh, I can cross that x off and that x off, but you can't actually do that, so be careful that you don't. What you only are going to have is you have this group of x plus 1 and this group of 2x. This is a Chapter 9 concept, and we'll get to it in more detail, but for now, whenever you see on the bottom a term that has plus or minus to it, just keep it, and that is your answer. Okay, let's try an example with 2 different functions. They're still going to call them f of x and g of x, but they are different. So f of x is 4x squared. G of x is x plus 1. Again, f of x and g of x are just labels. They want us to find h of x. To find it, we're going to take f of x, put that in parentheses, 4x squared. We're going to add to it g of x in parentheses, x plus 1. And really, in the addition part, the parentheses just kind of fall out. We don't really end up using those. and you're going to add your like terms together. There are no like terms here, so that is the final answer. Now be careful. Do write it in standard format. Remember, standard format is the highest exponent first, so it'd be x squared, x, and then the number or the constant. In Schoology, what you would type is 4x, the caret key, 2, and then plus x plus 1 with no spaces, and you would get this answer correct. Okay, let's take a look at the subtraction. So for letter B here, h of x, it's just a label. That's all it is. It says take the f function, which is 4x squared, subtract from it the g function, which is x plus 1. Now you are going to have to distribute through this negative. And when you do that, you're going to get 4x squared. You do a negative times x is negative x. A negative times a positive 1 is negative 1. Again, there are no like terms, and that is your final answer. Continuing on, they've switched the functions on us again. F of x this time is x cubed. G of x is 2x. Let's do the multiplication. H of x then is just another name for the final answer. It's just a label. They want us to take f of x. I'm going to substitute this because it's x cubed. Put it in parentheses, and I times it by g of x, which is just 2x. And I simplify. Now, this is like chapter 6 with exponents, so just remember, if it throws you off, x cubed just means there's 3 x's. This means 1. So you add the exponents in this case, and our final answer is going to be 2x to the 4th power, and that's what you would put in Schoology. For division, be careful on this one. H of x is equal to f of x is x cubed, and g of x this time is 2x. But remember, I said you only have to be cautious if there's a plus and minus on the bottom. This is actually a chapter 6 simplification problem. So you do need to simplify it like we would in chapter 6. Remember, x cubed means there's 3 x's and here's 1. So what happens is this x goes away, and this becomes a squared. So therefore, we're going to have x squared on the top. And then be careful that 2 is just sitting on the bottom, so it's divided by 2. Now, how would you type this in Schoology? You would just do x, caret 2, a division or that backslash symbol, and then a 2 to get the right answer. Our last slide for today is, again, they've switched our functions on us, so let's just take a look at what we're seeing. Here we have our f of x is 3x, g of x is x minus 1, and they want us to do, it looks like some addition, multiplication, and division with that. So let's start with the addition. The h of x is f of x plus g of x. So I'm going to take f of x, and then I'm going to add g of x to it. Again, the parentheses just kind of fall out because what I end up doing, there's a 1 here, and you would distribute a plus 1, which means it's the same thing. Wrap it up by adding your like terms. 3x and 1x is 4x. This is adding now, minus 1. And that is our final answer. The multiplication would be h of x equals, plug in f of x, which is 3x, g of x, which is x minus 1. This is review. Don't forget to distribute. You distribute that. A 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times a negative 1 is negative 3x. That's our final answer. Then the last one here, the division, h of x is going to be equal to f of x, which is 3x, over g of x, which is x minus 1. This is not a chapter 6 question. This is a chapter 9, which you're not to yet, because this complete term is a plus or minus. There's a subtraction or adding going on. I cannot delete anything in that group unless there was an exact group that looked just like it. So that's all you would do. And that is going to lead us on into the homework. The 3 learning objectives on Schoology are A, B, and C, and you can go ahead and work on those now.